This is why I'm here to support the women and girls at New Friends, New Life who've been victims of the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world, human trafficking. And while we may want to dismiss this as an issue that only happens in other countries, we know in fact that it's happening right here in our own backyard. Today is for the woman who suffered unimaginable abuse, trafficked and exploited, but is now thriving as a mother, starting a new job that will enable her to provide for her family and be productive. Today is for the teen who's been abused throughout her childhood and never had a loving, trusting adult in her life, but is now going through therapy at New Friends, New Life, and determined to finish school and not let the past define her. Today is for the women and children we see every day who are bravely working through the program to find a new way and ultimately a new life. Some days, the idea of ending sex trafficking can seem like a monumental task. You can become overwhelmed by the reality that over 400 girls are trafficked on our streets every night. That 15 is the average age a girl enters the sex trade. That the sex trade in Dallas is a $99 million crime. Gratefully, our visionary founders were compelled over 20 years ago to find a way to do what they could for one woman. And so began New Friends, New Life. Today, we are providing access to education, job training, interim financial assistance, mental health, and spiritual support. The Employment Partnership Program you just saw is part of our Economic Empowerment Initiative, which is a key pillar in our women's program. Thus far this year, we've seen a 90% enrollment increase in our new four-phase women's program. 90%. We've recorded over 1,400 drop-in visits to our Youth Resource Center. We've been amazed by this growth, but it has also resulted in a waiting list of women who need our services. People are seeking help, and we have to be ready. In order to serve them, we have to hire additional staff. We're so proud of the women and teens who are bravely stepping forward for support and restoration, and we want to have the resources to support them. So I'm asking each of you to stand for a woman on our wait list, or stand for the 125 new women we've welcomed into our program this year. Our goal is to raise at least $100,000 today, but I believe we can do so much more. If each individual here gives $125 in support of each new woman in our program, we will reach that goal. The Jensen Project has already agreed to match $25,000 in donations after we reach the $50,000 mark. And we're so grateful to Janet Jensen for doing this. And we cannot let that offer be in vain. Our staff will now be coming to your tables to collect donation envelopes. The funds you give today will change lives. On behalf of the women and girls we serve every day, I say thank you. Restoration is possible, and we see it every day. Now I'd like to welcome to the stage Nate Christensen, who is the Senior Vice President and General Counsel. On behalf of our presenting sponsor, the men and women of Hunt Consolidated, we say thank you for your generosity in helping to make this day possible.
Good afternoon. My name is Nate Christensen, and I'm honored to be here today on behalf of my colleagues, the men and women of Hunt Consolidated. Alongside New Friends, New Life, we stand for her. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce today's moderated conversation between NBC5's Laura Harris and acclaimed actress, producer, and activist, Jada Pinkett Smith. Jada is a longtime advocate in the effort to end human trafficking and is featured in the CNN special report, Children for Sale, The Fight to End Human Trafficking, in which she traveled to a hotbed of trafficking in Atlanta. This cause is deeply important to her, and she continues to be an advocate for Don't Sell Bodies, an organization that focuses on educating and preventing the spread of child sex slavery in America. Currently, Jada is using her strong voice on Red Table Talk on Facebook Watch, where she is joined by her daughter and mother as they discuss a range of social and cultural issues to encourage an open discussion and dialogue between women of all ages. Now please join me in welcoming to the stage Laura Harris and Jada Pinkett Smith.
Well, I want to just honor you for 1 second and applaud you. This is a beautiful turnout for this cause. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for being here, honestly. How are you, beautiful?
I'm great, thank you. We want to thank you for being here. This is awesome.
It's my pleasure, honestly.
So we all know why we're here. We know that much. But I don't know if you all know why this is so close to your heart. And I think that's a big reason why you decided to come here and agreed to come here with us today. So first things first, what was interesting to me when I read about your story, your daughter was the one who told you, this is a problem. And you said, come around here.
Oh yeah, so Willow, my daughter, she was about 11. And I believe at the time there was a documentary that came out about young soldiers in Africa, young child soldiers. And she started to do a lot of research on the internet, and she got into this whole world of young women her age that were being trafficked. And she said to me, Mommy, I want to be a voice for this subject. And I was like, Willow, this is heavy stuff. First of all, I was like, this doesn't exist in the United States. I was like, this happens over there. And she's like, you're wrong. And so she took me through all of these stories of young women. And I was really disgusted with myself that I didn't know that it was happening. And as I started to read through the stories, I started to realize that these were young girls from all different kinds of backgrounds, that I could have been trafficked, Willow could be trafficked, any one of our daughters, sons, brothers, sisters could be trafficked. And I was like, this is an issue that we need to be educated about in this country and have understanding of why this is happening and how it's happening. So that's how I got involved.
And that's probably part of the issue and a big part of the issue right now, if you think about it. A lot of people say to themselves, well, that's that kind of girl.
Oh, yeah,
that's this kind of girl. And that's just not what it is.
It's not what it is.
Especially here in the United States.
Yeah, we're all vulnerable, you know, and I think about myself, 11 years old, 12 years old. I was running the streets. My mother was a nurse. She was working from 7 in the evening to 7 in the morning. I mean, I was in the streets, a loner, alone, a young girl. And where I come from in Baltimore, those streets have a whole lot of wolves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I could have gotten scooped up and gotten into a situation that could have led very easily to me being trafficked. I'll tell you a story. I was in Italy, okay? It's 20 years old. I was supposed to be going on a trip with a friend of mine, and he couldn't go because he broke his leg. I said, well, I'm going, okay? It's the first time I'm going to Italy. And, you know, I'm just a little chick with some tennis shoes, a little hood chick from off the different world. I didn't know much about Italy or the world yet. But I'm staying in this hotel, and I'm clearly by myself. I come out of my hotel room one day, and the valet guy pulls me over, pulls me up, and he says, "You're very pretty. I want to take you on a date on a boat." Okay? So I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is nice. I get to go on a boat ride in Italy with this guy on a nice date. And some said, call your mother. Call your mother. So I called my mother. I said, Mommy, this guy asked me to go on this date with him on a boat. She said, Jada, do not go anywhere near a boat with any man that you don't know. She says, if something happens to you all the way out in that ocean, nobody knows anything. And I think back to that today. That if I had gotten on that boat, possibly where I could be. This is a guy, this ballet guy. Where does he get the boat? Real talk, right?
You're better than me because I didn't even think that far. I didn't think about that. That's all.
But it's all these kind of honey traps.
Yeah.
That's why I'm trying to say it's a big mistake to think that trafficking happens to a certain type of girl.
You talk about how you called your mom.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I do all the time. I call my mom. No matter what. I'm in the grocery store, I call my mom.
That's
what
right.
was I supposed to put in the recipe? Because she's got to explain the whole thing. But there are some people who are trafficked by family members. And that's the part that is blowing my mind.
Most in this country, well, everywhere, actually, it's by someone that the victim knows, you know, and yeah, that was a shock to me as well. And, you know, that's why we have to educate our children. And I also learned through my trafficking advocacy that as parents, how we love our children is very important, because what a lot of our young girls and young boys out here look and are attracted to as like what love is, you know. And I realized that in my advocacy. It really helped me change some of my parenting, you know, because a lot of times you'll find traffickers that know how to manipulate and use certain actions and language that unfortunately isn't very different than some of the tactics we use in our own households. And, you know, just in regards to, you know, just being careful of the kind of violence we have in our homes, how we talk to our children.
How we talk to each other.
How we talk to each other, you know, so that we can create that distinct difference in what love looks like, you know, and I had to really evaluate that in my own parenting.
You had a very unique experience, because for those of you who don't know, as we were talking about before, on CNN, they did a documentary, Children for Sale, in Atlanta. That is my hometown. I love that city. I absolutely love that city. When I watched the documentary, I said, there is no way this is happening in the city that I grew up in. There's no way. Because it certainly wasn't happening on my street.
Right.
Or so I thought.
So you thought.
Until I watched the documentary and watched the young ladies who you were meeting. That to me was eye-opening. These are people that could have been going to my high school, could have gone to my college, and I never knew it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You'd be surprised how trafficking is disguised as well. And I think we also have to know that it's not just men that are trafficking young children in our country either, you know. And as time goes, it's getting very sophisticated as far as the networking and how it's done and who's doing it. It is getting very sophisticated and it's changing all the time.
What were some of the things that you noticed, especially when you were out with the detectives in Atlanta? Some of the things that you noticed where you really looked at that and said, that's what human trafficking looks like?
You know, it's something you have to really immerse yourself in. I'll tell you another story that even today I was thinking about it when I was driving home. I watched a television program. I think it was Cops. I just happened to catch it. And a young boy, I think he was about 15, might have been about 15 or 16 years old. They thought he had run away from home, okay? And what happened was they found him with a older brother who just gotten out of jail, okay? This older man had been giving this young boy drugs, okay? And they found him in a motel room. Now I'm watching this program and I'm watching the police officers and they're not recognizing, I said, I know exactly what's happening here. I'm looking at this boy's face. He doesn't want to look at anybody. He's full of shame. And I'm looking at the older man that's with him and I said, these police don't recognize that this man has gotten this boy on drugs, has taken him to this motel room, and has been trafficking this boy. They're totally missing it right now, and I'm watching it. And I felt so helpless. I'm like, because I could see it, because you can look, there's just a certain look. I've been around victims of trafficking. You can just tell, and I can't explain it. It's something that you have to study. You have to sit and talk to survivors, you know, and you have to really study it because it's a feeling, it's a look. When you see a young girl on a bus stop at 12 o'clock in the afternoon and she's supposed to be in school, you know, or hanging out in the parking lot, mall of a parking lot, you know, parking lot of a mall. You know what I was trying to say. You know, you just start to recognize a certain look of uncertainty. Sometimes you get that a young woman or a young boy can't look you in the eye. You know, it's just a certain feeling, and it just comes from study. That's all I can say. You have to immerse yourself, you know, and just understanding what trafficking is and what it creates psychologically in a person's mind, young or older, because there are older people being trafficked as well. But yeah, that young boy sits in my head a lot when I think about, wow, national television, we still miss the mark, you know? But it's just part of that education, you know? And a lot is happening with young boys in our country, and that's not even the first place that people will go to when they see young boys in trouble. You know, you're not even
in the background.
Yeah, you know, because that's not the first thing that comes to your mind. Oh, he might be being trafficked, you know, but that's another booming trafficking situation in our country right now, big time, and transgenders.
I'm just here to tell you, no one chooses to be trafficked.
No.
Let me tell you that right now. It doesn't matter what lifestyle they chose. No one chooses this lifestyle. And unfortunately, once they're in it, many of them don't know how to get out. That's where New Friends, New Life comes in.
Absolutely.
That's why we're here.
Yep. Absolutely. And I just want to give props to New Friends, New Life as well. You guys are doing a phenomenal
That's
job.
amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. And just continuing to educate, because like I said before, it's just becoming a very, it's becoming a very sophisticated crime. You know, so just being able to have places where we can have discussions like this is very important.
So let's talk about Red Table Talk.
Okay.
I'm bringing it back for a reason. So this is a multi-generational conversation
Yes.
that you have with your mother, with your daughter, and several celebrities who I've seen on there, and they talk about things I say, really, that happened to you?
Right.
Wow. But I say that to say, a lot of times you think about trafficking as a conversation that you cannot have with a child. That's too heavy. You can't talk to them about that. But we have to figure out a way to have conversations with children, especially because, as you said, Willow was 11.
Yeah.
And you were an adult.
Yeah. And we had to have some real conversations about it.
Yeah.
Some real heavy-duty conversations. And I wish there was one formula of how to talk to your child, because it just depends on, it depends on your relationship. It depends on you as a parent and knowing how much information your child might need. Mm-hmm. You know, there's some children that are a lot more vulnerable, that need everything now. You know, you just don't have time to, you know, be soft with it. So I think as parents, it's really trying to figure out those conversations, but first and foremost, you know, having those conversations about who you are communicating with online. Okay?
That's my next question. That's it.
Because I'm going to tell you a story about a young woman who met a young boy online, and he wanted to take her out for pizza. She goes to her mom. She says, "Mom, I want to, you know, meet this young guy. You can go out for pizza." And she says, "Okay, I have to go with you." And she says, "Well, can you just wait for me in the parking lot?" Drives her daughter to the mall, drops her off to go have pizza with this supposedly young man who ended up being an older man who took her from the mall while her mother was in the parking lot. And he held her hostage in an abandoned apartment building where he trafficked her for months. So when I say to you, having conversations with your children in regards to who they are in communication with, and really stressing how dangerous it is, you know, to be in these online communications who you don't really know who's on the other side, and just telling our children, like, you can't just meet strangers that you meet online. That's a no-no. And I've even had to have communication with my own daughter about that, because you got all this IG, and she's like, "I need my friend," you know. Like, that's cool, but you're not going alone. That's what you're not gonna do. You know, so, you know, because of this internet and all this online communication, we really have to, and I feel like we have to create a certain new trust with our children as well, so they can feel like they can talk to us. And it's difficult because it's a little bit of releasing that old school, you know, and kind of having to bring in that new school and a little bit of that friend into the mix.
You do that so well on Red Table Talk. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, Willow said that to Jada? And now I'm like looking at the computer screen like, what's gonna happen next?
Boy, that child keeps me on my toes, okay? So you know she can say that to me on camera. Imagine when she's saying to me off. Real talk. Yeah, I just had to realize, I learned with her on this Tumblr, and it's all this pornography on there that I saw when she was 9. I was like, okay. We got to start a whole nother thing here. I have to really know, I have to have my daughter on my hip, strong. And as women, I had to really release some of my own fears just fears that I had in regards to her being a young woman and having to maybe confront some of the things that I had to confront as a young woman. I'm like, this is life, Jada. You have to use your experiences and everything that you've been through to prepare her. Don't hold it close to the chest. Prepare her, tell her your stories. And so that's how it all started. And that's where we started to develop that trust, and me going, there is nothing that you will experience that I haven't already been through, and let me tell you why. Boom, 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 boom. And she's like, dang, Mom, that happened to you? Yes, it did, and I survived, and I'm still here. So you know what that means? You can talk to me, there's no judgment, I've been through it. We can go through it together, and you don't have to do that alone.
And that's important, because my mom used to always tell me, I know you did it. I said, no, I didn't. She said, yeah, you did, because I invented it. I saw that. I invented that.
That's right.
Wow.
So it's just understanding that teens are going to be teens, kids are going to be kids. We did it, you know what I'm saying? And us to kind of tone down those veils of judgment and kind of bring our kids in and just mentor them through the inevitable ups and downs of growing up.
In the same vein of social media, today is International Day of the Girl. You might see that hashtag.
Oh, wow.
So yes, it is International Day of the Girl. So it's a day that women are supposed to be empowering young women, girls, and letting them know they can do anything that they want to do. But at the same time, and I know many of you parents out there might know what I'm talking about, it is incredible what young ladies are posting on social media these days.
Yeah.
It's incredible how they're dressed when they go out to the movie theater. I mean, I'm just at the theater 3 p.m. on Saturday. I think that I'm out having a good time, and I'm like, what is she wearing? But I think that's part of starting the conversation of, you don't want to be seen looking like this.
I think, and I've had to talk to a couple of my kids' female friends, understanding that young women don't always understand the power that they possess, okay? So I think that that's the conversation. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't want to be seen in this because let's just talk about a little bit of the reaction this brings in the world and how you might not be ready for that.
That attention.
That kind of attention. Right? I think a lot of young women don't necessarily understand what kind of attention certain things bring. They're just like, oh, I saw this Instagram star with these little shorty shorts on and little cheeks hanging out, all of that. They see all the likes, you know what I mean? But they don't really understand what that can bring.
Yeah.
So I know even with my daughter and some of her friends, and just sitting down as a woman and just going, hey, let's have a conversation. What are you trying to achieve with those shorts? I just want to know.
Just wondering.
Just wondering.
Clearly you want something.
Yeah. What you looking for? Let's start there.
But what kind of answers do you get? Because I often have that question, but I don't have the guts to ask.
It's attention, but they don't understand
the attention.
Kind of attention. You know what I'm saying? Even we as women, we don't always understand. We don't always understand. But when we see something that we understand that a young woman is doing, it's like, hey, come here, let's talk a second. Let's break this down. But I think that it's more of a mentoring than going, why you got that on? Yeah, you don't need to be wearing that.
Usually they shut down after that.
It's over.
Yeah.
Versus like, hey, what are you looking for? And just talking. You'd be surprised what if they feel comfortable to talk, they'll tell you a whole lot of stuff. You know what I mean? That's it. They will tell it all. And that's when you can just break it down and you can tell your stories and, you know, just help them have understanding, because it's not that these young girls are just always, they just want to be hot and all, you know, it has a lot to do with the lack of knowledge, because not a lot of girls understand how the sexual mind, the predatorial mind, they don't understand, because we don't think like that. We're women, we don't think like that.
Yeah.
You know, all the time. I mean, you know, there's some of us that might get a little, I've seen some aberrated, like, female sexuality out there, but that's usually because of a very traumatic experience. But as young girls, they don't understand what all of that can bring and just how to protect themselves, you know?
For so many of these survivors, it started when they were so young.
Yeah.
Maybe abuse when they were 3 or 5 or 7. Then they get into this life. And then they're in their 30s, like the woman that you interviewed on that CNN documentary, and they're just there and they say, I want out, but I don't know how. So of the 1,000 people who are in here right now, what are we supposed to do? What can we do to help?
To help.
To help with this issue that we're seeing in the country right now. The things that you have seen where you can say, hey, something's not right there, or hey, this is how you can help.
Well, first of all, helping big time, honestly, is helping organizations like this. Honestly, that's the biggest help. That is the biggest help, because people who are dedicating their lives to help with this issue, because I have to tell you, it takes a lot of dedication. So for those who want to be boots on the ground, you really have to get educated in regards to what the world of human trafficking looks like. I went all over the world, from Mexico to Spain. I mean, in Spain, I learned that they were bringing, they were trafficking people from Africa and still using the same slave ship routes to bring human beings to be trafficked in Spain. The same routes that they used during slavery, okay? For this new age of slavery, right? So it's really about educating yourself to get a real understanding. And you can get an education through participating, you know, and supporting organizations like this one. It's like, if you really want to know about it, it's like, sit down with survivors, sit down with people who work with survivors, and learn about trafficking and what it is. But it's a real education that you have to have, and then you can decide how you want to participate in regards to helping, because there's lots of ways. There really is. And the more we educate ourselves and keep our eyes open when we're in hotels like this, when we're on the streets and we see certain things, when we're in the airports, we're at the clubs, the bars, when we're at sporting events. There's a lot of ways that one can help with this issue once one is educated. So I would say, first and foremost, if you want to help, get educated.
Right.
And we heard Kim saying earlier, now there's a wait list for New Friends, New Life. I mean, women and men and young boys, they want help.
Yeah.
So we have to help them in any way we can. And like you said, I mean, maybe if you don't have the time for education, you got some money.
Yeah, or you know,
That helps.
Absolutely, it helps a lot. And you know, you can donate time too. And I'm telling you, you can donate clothes, you know, you can donate items. There's a lot of different organizations that I work with, CAST for one, in Los Angeles, different places that have beds, you know, for victims of trafficking, that you can go through your house, and things that you don't need anymore, that can be repurposed for young women and men who are trying to reestablish their lives. I do that a lot. But there's so many ways that you can help, and I'm sure that New Friends, New Life, they have a network.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you have a network. So that there's many organizations throughout the city.
Yeah.
So, because the way that I see it, everybody has to lend a helping hand to each other in regards to this particular issue.
And personally, I know that you have seen, it doesn't just, they're not just trying to restore their lives, but they're also trying to restore their souls. You know?
They're trying to restore their souls first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you saw those young women that were on the film today, on the screen today, you know, it really, the amount of relief and you can just see in their eyes, just having the opportunity to have a second chance. And you know, I tell you something else. It's difficult. You definitely have to have an elastic heart, because there's a lot of pain that comes with doing this work.
It's just so powerful hearing it come from you, though, because we know you have seen it firsthand.
Yeah. Sorry for the tears, but
I know. I mean, we all saw it, right? We all saw it in that video. And what's interesting, what you just talked about, are their eyes. You know, I always look at eyes, they're the window to your soul.
It
You look at
is.
someone and you talk to them, and I'm looking at you in your eyes, I feel it, right? All we saw there was their eyes. Tell me that you didn't feel their pain.
yeah.
And feel that now they feel like there's a weight off their shoulders.
But it's not just that. I think those tears that I just felt were tears of joy in a certain way, because there are a lot of young girls that don't make it.
Mm.
I've known a few. So, when you see those that have supplies, yeah, it's a real blessing. And it's something that we can't take for granted. And that's why when I came out here and I saw how many people were here, I was really proud and full of joy, because these young women need our help. And this is an epidemic in our country. And there's so many of us, I know that we feel as though we have a lot of problems, and a lot of times we can even heal our own souls by helping someone else have a second chance. So that's really part of my advocacy, is about duty. I've been so blessed in my life. I've survived so much. And there's nothing that brings me more pleasure than to help someone else survive and have a second chance. So I really hope you guys donate today, whatever you can, $5, $100, whatever you can, whatever. You'd be surprised what $5 can do. But just don't leave here today without giving something. This is such an important cause. I cannot tell you what I've seen out there. It's bad. And I didn't start my advocacy just by watching videos. I've gone to shelters. I've talked to young women. I've gone to the track in upstate California, Oakland. I've been on the streets trying to pull girls off the street. When I tell you, when I get passionate about something, I go into it hard. So I have not been an advocate of human trafficking just sitting on the sidelines. I've been in the streets of this. When you have to sit and listen to a girl talk about the wear and tear on her body from sleeping with 30 men a day. It's bad. So, I'm gonna say it again. I cannot thank you guys enough for being here and caring enough to be here. And I wanna say thank you for having me here. This has been a joy. Thank you.
Well, I'll just let that sit. And I'll say thank you.